You got to keep that in.
That was chunky.
that was
a spicy.
That was just a weird sound.
Spicy meatball, man. Welcome to Super Garbage Day, a retro video game review show where my co-host and I are randomly chosen a game, usually obscure, 20 years or older, that neither of us have played, with hopes to find the treasure in the trash. I'm your host, B. Ross, and to my right is...
Mr. Krakish.
From the very famous band Rammstein 2.
No,
not the first one, Rammstein 2.
No, that's also false. Stop telling lies.
Okay. It's from Ace of Base. That's as far as my overseas bands go.
It's
very sheltered.
If you're familiar with the Adult Swim show.
Which one?
Metalocalypse.
Yeah, I love Metalocalypse.
So it's a song from Death Clock.
Wow. I don't know how I didn't catch that. I'm like a huge Adult Swim person. Like that was like totally, I think our pop culture era.
Yeah.
Like, cause we're millennials and like that was a big part. Cause that started when I was like graduating high school.
Yeah.
I have such a crazy story. I remember seeing the first episode of Aqua Teen premiere when I was like 17, turning 18. I watched it live. And then when my son Roman was born, they were premiering the last episode of the show.
There's a new movie out, apparently.
I saw that. Also, they released a new miniseries.
Also, we're not sponsored, but
I freaking wish.
If you want to, Adult Swim.
Yeah, Adult Swim sponsoring us. That will never happen. But our voice works good. Look, I can be goofy.
If I wasn't sick, I'd do some. I'll give you some voice work, but
sounds like a threat.
A little under the weather right now.
I'm going to say that next time I'm about to get in a fight. Boy, I'm about to give you some of the voice work.
I'm going to give you the voice work.
And then I'll go, do the worst meatwad ever. Good Lord. Hey, by the way, we got a Patreon. If you want to join our Patreon, I have now put the link in every show notes because apparently it was hard to find our Patreon, which I thought was patreon.com/Super Garbage Day, but apparently that wasn't working. So just look in our show notes. No matter what platform you're on, there should be a link there that says Patreon. Take you right to it. $2 gets you exclusive episodes that are uncensored and not available to the public. There'll be one this week coming out, the first one. And we have a $5 tier, which allows you to submit a game once a month into a separate pool. And once a month we'll be doing or playing a Patreon submitted game and reviewing it.
Do we want to make that the last game of the month?
Yeah, it already is going to be.
Okay.
Because we have another part of being a patron is that you get a shout out on the show. So I'm going to shout out our first patron, Daniel Kenshiro. Thank you. Also, he stepped in last week to give a review on Construction Zone.
Daniel Kenshiro.
Great dude. Actually, you want to know something about him? He's a phenomenal 3D printer. I'm not sure what the term is, 3D printing artist, but one time I commissioned him to make me a exact, I wouldn't say replica, obviously, but like a smaller scale version of a Stargate. And he 3D printed it. It's actually here. I'll show you before you go home.
So he's got to have some modeling skills.
Yes, he does. And he painted it and everything, did all the runes. And I'm pretty sure he might be a Warhammer guy.
You might want to give me his information because I'd like to link up with him.
Absolutely. I'll give you his OnlyFans. So.
Yes.
Yes.
It gets spicy.
It's Painted Taints. Oh, man. I can't leave that in. I'm going to bleep that whole part out. He'll get a kick out of this. He's a super cool guy. And I'm really happy to have him and his support for the show. But, okay. So that's Patreon plug. Now for the retro question. Mr. Miller, or Death Clock song name.
Mr. Krakish.
I just remember the coffee song. What game do you despise even though it's generally loved?
Ooh, that's a hard one.
Right.
I say that every time, I think. Because, yeah, you have good questions. You surprise me.
Thank you. I know I sometimes have been considering maybe sending you the questions before you do the show, but I'm also like, there's something magical about not knowing how you're gonna answer. And that way, I don't like planned things other than like I have show notes. I like the rawness of stuff, so I probably just keep it that way. Or
games that are generally regarded as good that I hate,
or just something that's really renowned and you didn't really see the hype.
Ooh.
I mean, I'll let you be. I'll be honest. You can just really use any game. It doesn't have to be retro, because that is a hard question to ask, especially if I'm like, and it has to be from 2002 and behind, because you got to look deep there.
Ooh.
I'll be honest. I don't even have an answer for it ready. I went blindly into this too.
Yeah. I don't want to leave dead airspace. So
that's the easiest thing to edit out. Don't worry.
No, keep it in.
This is raw.
Just me just sitting here being like, oh.
Yes, this is now an Alice in Chains podcast. Welcome to Down in a Hole.
Meow.
I'm your host, Dirty Dan. No,
damn it. There are game. I'm going to use a modern example.
Okay.
I don't think the Dark Souls games are good.
Really? You mean the first 3, or like the whole FromSoft?
No, I think FromSoft has some good stuff going on.
But the Dark Souls games in general?
But the Darks, like being hard for, like being difficult for difficulty's sake.
Does it come off kind of hipstery or like elitist in a sense?
It is.
Okay.
Especially because I have so many friends that aren't willing to even give them a shot.
Right.
Because they're afraid of them.
Wow.
And like, I like a difficult game.
Yeah.
But when there are moments where you open a door and you just drop into a pit into nowhere and have to redo an entire like hour and a half of gameplay, that's frustrating and I don't think that's good game design.
It's almost like if you were to play, I'm trying to think of a good example or something that would relate to real life, but it's like, I don't know, maybe the Army Rangers boot camp versus Army boot camp, in regards to like the game's going to be hard, but Dark Souls type games are like,
I'm going to tie this into the episode.
Okay.
Now thinking about it, but actually this is going to tie into a Patreon episode.
Okay.
So if you want my opinions on another game, then check out our Patreon.
Really? Okay.
But
I'm trying right now to rack my brain on how you're associating those two, because I know what the Patreon episode is, but no clue. So
for example, FromSoft does good games. I enjoy the Dark Souls series.
Right, but are you saying you think they're overrated?
I maybe that's where I'm going at.
Yeah, I'm wondering, because I just recently, I think on the episode 1 of this podcast, I think I spoke to you about how I played Dark Souls for the first time. And I avoided it because I was like, I'm not playing this game that's supposed to be hard for hard's sake, you know? And then I actually had to play it because I was streaming at the time, and I'm like, recommend a game and I'll play it. And somebody did a point, redeem. So I sat through I think I put 30 hours into Dark Souls 1, and I was like, this is a masterpiece. I'm completely disagreeing with you respectfully, but I was the other realm of that, where I never played Dark Souls my entire life, didn't care for it, kind of actively avoided it because I'm like, I don't like the idea of, and then I forced myself through that game, and I was like, this game is so good. And I've only played the first one, so I haven't played the other two. I do hear that the first one's probably the best of the 3, but that's very debatable.
Now, did you play Dark Souls?
Souls, not Demon Souls. Dark Souls.
Dark Souls, okay.
On the Xbox 360, there was something about it that clicked, and a little bit of that Battletoadsness came back. And I'm like, wow, it's really crazy how you get video game muscle memory because of Battletoads, and forcing myself to beat that. I'm not going to say Dark Souls was easier, but I was definitely more conditioned mentally to accept losing all the time. And then when you actually got good at a part that was initially seemed impossible, it was like the biggest dopamine orgy ever in my head. And then I found myself, I did one stream where I beat 7 bosses in the like 3-hour stream. And people were like, what is going on here? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I guess like that first time you come to those 2 bosses, it's like it's like Charlie Fivestein and Orlick or whatever. Attorneys at law. I beat them in like the 3rd or 4th try, and people were like, "What?" And I'm not trying to like toot my own horn here. I just realized leading up to that though, I died more to the regular enemies. There was something about the bosses where I was able to analyze the patterns, and I wasn't overwhelmed all the time because the normal enemies in my mind are harder because they will bombard you all the time.
To me, the actual level design was harder than anything. Like
some levels
when you're in, it's specifically, it's like the underworld of Blighttown or something. Like it's just this poison.
Oh, it's like a poison pool.
It's underground, and it's where I rage quit.
It's kind of insecty, and then like you're like dying the whole time you're running because you're poisoned. Yeah. That place is terrible.
I mean, the time where I actually almost like threw my controller was when I described. I opened a door.
I think that was just still Blighttown.
But
but you're talking about the lowest level of Blighttown, right?
Yeah. And I hadn't found a bonfire for ages. I had just beaten a boss.
You opened a door and fell through?
And yeah, I opened the door, and it was not even supposed to happen. Like I've told this to people who have played this game multiple times. They're like, how did that? I was like, I don't know. The game hates me. But yeah, I opened a door and I fell off of the ledge I didn't even touch anything. I just said, open door, hands off the controller, and I just died.
Huh.
Now I take what I've said about the Dark Souls series.
Yeah.
Elden Ring.
Yeah, because you like Elden Ring, right?
Oh, I loved Elden Ring.
So, but perhaps, like I said, it's the evolution of.
I also think I prefer the more open world, whereas the Dark Souls series is so linear.
Well, arguably the first one, Sekiro and Elden Ring are the most open worldy of their whole catalog. From what I hear, I've only played Dark Souls, and I played a little bit of Bloodborne. Didn't like it.
I want to play Bloodborne,
but
mostly for the aesthetic.
But there was a game. We're really going off the cuff here, or not? I keep saying that last time. I know we're kind of in the.
We're in a tangent right now.
I know we're in the weeds, but who cares? I like weeds. Okay, so you know how like Dark Souls, or I should say FromSoft, started this in like kind of subgenre of like Souls-like games. There was one game that came out that I adored. It was called Remnants from Ashes. That game, and apparently it was like a big ripoff pretty much of Bloodborne, and it wasn't made.
Oh, I remember this.
Yeah, and I adored that game. That was my first taste of a Dark Souls type game. But I recommend that one over Bloodborne, actually, because I played them both, and Bloodborne didn't capture me as much as that one did. I think it's called Remnant from Ashes, and it's on the Game Pass currently. So
see, and I do remember this game because I had friends who were playing it, and wanted me to join in, but it wasn't PC compatible at the time.
Right, politically correct.
And so they're playing on their Xboxes, and I was not able to join in.
Yeah, and it's way just like any game, playing with somebody, way better. But that game actually is super fun by itself too.
Okay.
So, yeah. And you know what? Just to make this whole tangent even I don't mean worse, but I guess not to extend it. I can't think of a game for the question I asked. If I were, I guess I'd say Civilization or like Age of Empires. Never, just can't. Something I tried. I give everything a chance, right? Like so, and if people are wondering what I'm talking about, because
I almost wanted to just be like, what?
Yeah, we're talking about things you despise that is generally loved. I for some reason or another, I cannot get into the Civilization games.
Really?
I tried so hard, and it's not like I hate like strategy, because I loved like Warcraft 2, and I loved other games, Warcraft 3.
Is it the lack of killing?
No, I don't mind that either. Like I like RimWorld. That game is amazing, and I don't say they're like that closely related, But if you know what RimWorld is, you should like Civilization, right? I can't, something about those games I can't get into. Those games.
It's probably I tried
for hours.
I could see you don't like Sid Meier's
I like
game
Pirates.
design.
I like Pirates. Those Pirates games were good.
I have words about Pirates.
Oh, great.
We're just gonna go on a tangent of games we disagree on.
You know what though? That would be actually not a bad idea. We should consider that for an exclusive episode where you and I just write down games that like just with this theme of games that we despise but are generally loved, and just have a roundtable of, because I loved the Dark Souls game. I only played one. You think it's overrated? I think Civilization's overrated. I don't really think it's overrated. Let me take that back. It's not overrated, just not my game. And I don't mean the genre, just Civilization in general. I've tried to play even the newer ones. I can't get into it. It's just something about it. I'm bored to death. Like, oh, okay, this and that. Like Mountain Blade is far better.
Well, Mountain Blade is a whole nother monster.
I know, but to me, they're in the same. They live in the same neighborhood, right? They may not be neighbors.
I mean, I don't talk to any of my neighbors, so.
Oh, I don't either. Not these days. I haven't been to a barbecue in like half a decade.
But I see what you're saying.
Yeah, like Mountain Blade captured me more, and perhaps maybe you're right. It's the killing.
I mean, Mountain Blade is a more interactive experience.
That game is a gift from God. If you haven't played Warband specifically, if you haven't played Mountain Blade Warband, and you like military strategy, old school, I don't know, you like Civilization and Dark Souls.
If you just like standing on top of a parapet with a big ass sword, just chopping.
Oh, but it's so brutally difficult at first, and like it's so unforgiving.
But then once you get it,
you know what it is? Mountain Blade is a mixture of Civilization and Dark Souls. So,
and I mean that makes my answer difficult because
the answer for both of us is just tell people to play Warband.
But it's like when you just assault me with it, it's like games I played that I'm like where people rave about it.
Yeah.
And I just like, but I like other stuff they've done.
Right. And Sid Meier, like, I don't know. I've SimCity is cool.
See, and I like Civ, was it Civ 6 or 5? I don't know. There was one that came out
where you can nuke the world with Gandhi.
Well, Gandhi, there's a very funny story about that. Here's some gamer lore.
Okay.
The original Civilization, whoever coded Gandhi put the decimal in the wrong place for him on his percentage chance to nuke you.
Oh yeah, and you can, right? I heard about this is like an urban legend, but that is true.
It's true.
Yeah, where Civilization.
He was supposed to have like a negative 1,000% to nuke you, and they put the decimal in the wrong place or whatever. And
so he can actually nuke you in the game.
Oh, he will nuke you. He always nukes you. Gandhi goes nuclear every chance he gets.
Gandhi.
If you let him get nuclear tech,
that's got to be a band name.
Gandhi, Nuclear Gandhi.
Nuclear Gandhi, dude, it's so good.
But yeah, he will nuke you every time, and it became a meme, and they continued it throughout the series.
Let's see, there is a band called Nuclear Gandhi.
Nuclear Gandhi,
but they're a thrash metal band from 2005.
Okay, well, they're probably not around anymore.
No.
But we appreciate the effort.
That's the exact musical genre I thought that band name would be.
Thrash metal?
Yeah. Nuclear Gandhi? Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So, all right. So that's that question.
I'm actually surprised we didn't get interrupted by.
I've learned my lesson. That was just poor. I've created templates for our episodes, and for some reason or another, that sound effect ended up like somewhere lost in the episode, and I forgot to delete it. And so it would play. It was fun. I mean, I don't know. Maybe moving forward, I might just throw it randomly on the timeline. But okay, let's get to our game this week.
That was probably a longer rant than needed be, but
I am kind of considering making that clip like an exclusive though, because I think that it's a good conversation piece. And no, I'll leave it in. I'll leave it in this episode because JJ Squawkers. Anyways, so our game this week is JJ Squawkers on the arcade.
yeah.
We still recording? Okay, good. So imagine I check right now my program and it's like we didn't even hit start. It's like, oh,
that would have been fun.
JJ Squawkers is a colorful run and gun side-scrolling platformer arcade game developed by Athena and published by Able, I don't know, in 1993. JJ Squawkers, the character, is a large green bird that goes on a rampage after having his treehouse bombed by bizarre cast of foes. That is the only storyline in the game. That's all it needed.
And what you just said is the most research I could find on this game.
I did some diving because I was like, it doesn't have a Wikipedia page. No, so it's a game that doesn't have a Wikipedia page. That's incredible.
Well, and
it has an IMDb.
It does have an IMDb. Yeah. I did find that.
Which I found out recently why. There's a lot of video game trivia on IMDb. So for some reason, I didn't know that IMDb is used as a resource for trivia questions to be like archived.
So that checks out.
Still weird,
but it's weird. It's weird that they dive into video game stuff.
I don't know, man. Internet movie database, yeah, right. That's weird. So let's talk about first impressions. I recorded my first impression. If everybody's wondering or wants to see the live stream of the games that are chosen every week, you can go to twitch.com. No, it's not .com. It's .tv. Twitch.tv/supergarbageday, one word. And there are archives of the first impressions of the past games. And whenever I play a new game, I live stream it there. So if you want to come check out, say hi, and make fun of me, feel free.
I need to get mine back up.
So my first impression was this game is balls out from the get-go.
Oh yeah.
Yes. It's not playing around. It's extremely arcadey.
It's very, I want to put it on the par with like Metal Slug in that kind of feel.
Yes.
Like right from the get-go, you're just balls to the wall.
Yeah.
Only you don't have a gun, you're throwing tomatoes.
It's tomatoes, man. Tomatoes to the wall. Also, I actually have that in my show notes in the page of influences that I feel either influenced or influences. And Metal Slug was like number one.
I feel like Metal Slug came before this.
I don't know. Maybe. I feel like Metal Slug was later.
I didn't have time.
This was 1993, so
I didn't have time to do a lot of research. I was very busy this week.
And we picked two games. 1996. This predates it.
Okay.
Which actually leads a little bit closer into my theory later on in my verdict.
You got to keep that in.
That was chunky.
that was just a weird sound.
Spicy meatball, man. I found myself laughing at the absurdity of this game. Like, if you watch that first play video, I shouldn't say first play, it was a first impressions video. I kept just, as the game progressed, it just got more and more silly and random. It was literally like being inside the mind of Conan O'Brien writer or something. You know?
I said what with multiple exclamation points and question marks behind it more times than I think I have in recent memory.
Yeah, it's almost like Metal Slug smoked some DMT.
Yeah.
That's the way I can describe it. Except it's not the weapons and like the combat and everything. Combat.
Well, how are we gonna break this down? Because it's a fever dream to start with.
It is. So it's a wacky arcade game. You know, like think about Katamari Damacy or whatever the hell it's called. That game. That game's weird and crazy and out there. This game's like that. Like it's definitely like a brain dump of creative ideas made into an arcade game that is insanely hard because I'm playing it on MAME. I don't think there's any other way to play this game. I don't think you can even find a copy of it anywhere.
I played it on the
like internet game database.
The game, yeah. And I got my Xbox controller to work with it.
Good. I played it on a MAME emulator on my system, and I was like, wow, if I was playing this with like my actual money, I'd be like $30 deep.
Oh, that I was gonna talk about that later.
Yeah,
but this
we'll get to that in gameplay because I thought we were jumping ahead. But do you have anything to add about first impressions?
It's like Cuphead.
That's another thing I put in the list of in my list of influences or influenced,
but on a heavier dose of acid.
Yeah, and I don't feel the gameplay mechanics are as strong.
No, Cuphead is a masterpiece.
Right. But this predates all of this. So it makes me wonder, and I have a big theory about JJ Squawkers that I want to run by you later on at the very end. But
these people were on the good stuff.
Well, also it's a very Japanese game. So let's get that out of the way. If you look at Japanese pop culture, is this game really too out there? I mean, with all due respect to Japanese culture, which I highly respect because they engineer everything so brilliantly, including my favorite video game company of all time and my favorite knife for cooking with. You look at any one of their game shows or you look at any kind of bit of their culture, it's very bright, super colors, crazy mixtures, hybrids, tomatoes being thrown, weasels, like that. None of that sounds not par for the course for the culture.
Culturally, it's not out of the wheelhouse. You're right.
But was it made in Japan? Now, that's the question to ask.
Well,
because I don't know. I didn't even look up the publisher.
Well, because have we heard of it?
No.
To my knowledge, they did this.
They did this.
And who is it again? Just it's what, Atlas?
No, it's Able is the publisher.
That's what it is.
But it was developed by Athena.
Okay, so
I do have some information on them though.
Still Greek. I was kind of there.
And right now I'm looking at my show notes, and yes, they are Japanese based. Because I was looking at the other games that they've created, which I own 2 of those games.
Really?
Believe it or not, in my retro collection, yeah. Because they made some NES games.
What are the NES games?
Castle of Dragon, which I have, and Super Bowling.
Okay, those would have escaped me probably. Well, Castle of Dragon sounds like something I would play, but
I've played it and it's weird. But it's on the NES, so everything's kind of weird.
I mean, it's also Japanese.
Yeah. So we've looking at this game, there's no Western influence because it's just too creative. It's almost too creative. Like
I would actually be surprised if the people were stone sober when they created this game.
Also, what's the JJ stand for? That's never brought up. JJ Squawkers.
Well, it's like JJ Abrams. What does that stand for?
It's probably like John Jingleberry Abrams.
I know.
Jingleberry.
I know George.
It starts with a G.
R. He just put that in there.
George R.
R.
Tolkien.
Yeah.
Yes. But yeah, it's so Athena is a company that was founded in 1987.
Oh, that's when I was born.
In Japan. And they went bankrupt in December of 2013. So that's first impressions. All right, let's talk about gameplay. So gameplay, I feel like the game mechanics are generic and not as tight as games that precede JJ Squawkers. However, it's hard to, because the game is so, everything else is so out there and ridiculous that, maybe the mechanics are fine and I just have this way high caliber of expectation for like, well, the graphics be jumping
for the difficulty of this game. The mechanics are jank.
Mm-hmm. The jumping mechanic's a little off. Like it's not bad, but it's not. It could be tighter.
It's not tight enough. Exactly. Yeah. That's what I was thinking because they are asking for precision.
Yeah,
and referring to the question earlier, we're talking like a Dark Souls level game.
Right. Yeah. And it's, well, a problem I had with the gameplay was that, like, I wasn't a fan of the jumping mechanic, but I also was not a fan of the constant changing of the level platforms, in a sense of, okay, 1 second I step on this and it moves upwards, and then in the same level, I go onto these Pepsi symbol looking things that bounce me out of control almost, where I barely have any control over which direction I'm aiming. And then it has these weird squishy collapsing balls that, like, you step on them and they just collapse. And then when you jump, they like re-establish their structure. And that was annoying because then you have enemies that can walk through those and are hitting you when you can't shoot them back because, and then there's enemies coming from the top, from the side, just bombarded all the time with enemies. And at the very end of that level, you jump on these blocks that have faces and you're like, oh, this is funny. Then all of a sudden they get mad and they rocket you up.
There's also some enemies that you can stomp on and some that you can't.
I realized quickly the flying enemies, you can't do that to.
Oh, it wasn't specifically flying.
I mean, for at least that level, I don't know. There's so many enemies. I was actually kind of impressed with the amount of enemies. I mean, this kind of falls more under graphics and audio section of this podcast. But
I would say this is still in gameplay.
But we have flying squirrels, weird octopus hamsters, literal astrological signs, giant rainbow colored squares with eyeballs, a guy in a mouse costume humping a tree.
Yeah.
Weasels, flowerfish, sherbet colored rabbits, kangaroo piranhas. It just goes on.
A plethora of robots.
And like robot hybrid creatures.
There's what was another one that was frustrating?
I didn't like any of the enemies. I thought they were creative, but they all struck me as annoying. And then, like, can I just throw in there the banana pill?
Yeah.
There's just a banana pill that you walk on and it makes you fall like down under to the platform below you.
Which is also something I wanted to talk about that was very frustrating is it's a platformer that you can't platform.
Right.
It's like you can only go up.
It's always battling you to platform.
Unless you want to drop, and sometimes the drop is just going to kill you because you don't know where the death screen is, basically.
Right. You don't know what you can really step on, especially with those insane backgrounds.
Yeah, because the backgrounds do blend into
the foreground items. So like when you're trying to jump, I found myself sometimes jumping on something that was a part of the background.
And now you're stuck on a path that you didn't want to go.
Because everything's insane.
Yeah.
I mean, the levels are literally like an alchemy of just random items. And so is the background. And so are the enemies.
Mm-hmm.
And so are your power-ups. So like you have to figure it out really fast what's going on.
I almost feel like we just need to talk about everything at once with this game.
That's what this game is like. It's like an ADHD simulator.
Yeah.
In arcade form, you know. I kind of like it though. Like I'm a fan of this craziness, right? Like I like this game is definitely not without character.
No.
It might have too much character.
I was charmed by it.
It's charming, right?
When I first booted it up, I was just like, oh man, let's go.
Yeah.
Because
it's hype from the get-go because you jump into it and you're like, oh, okay. And then it's very colorful. I think it looks great. I mean, arcade games look good, especially if you're playing an arcade.
I mean, this actually looks like it could stand up with modern titles.
It's bright. Oh, I think it's better looking. Don't nail me to the cross, but I think it's better looking than Metal Slug. So Metal Slug's got this. I like Metal Slug's graphics and I like its style and its characters. But it's got this, for me, it's always got this kind of like overlay of grays and browns, you know?
It is lacking color.
It's lacking color where JJ Squawkers has, what a name. Every time I say it, I feel silly. JJ Squawkers is nothing but color. It is an entire spectrum of, it uses probably every color in the known color world.
Which I could say is also a detriment though.
Mm-hmm.
Because
it's overwhelming.
It's busy.
Especially in the final boss fight. Where if you have like epilepsy, you might die in real life.
This game definitely.
Yeah, it pushes your visual limits as far as.
I never made it to the final boss. I really wanted to.
Oh, I did.
I had, and I know you did it on stream.
I did. I streamed it. It wasn't I decided to try to play the game again and stream it after the first impressions, and I actually ended up like practically beating the game, with an exception to what happens at the very end.
Yeah.
But yeah, and it's a boss rush, and I was like, that's kind of cheap. Like, why would you don't put a boss rush in an arcade game? Like, to me, that was a big complaint I also had with the gameplay, was that the game is too short. It's too everything is really compressed.
Oh, but is it too short?
It is.
When money is involved.
I know, but I think that's a terrible business practice to make it super short and extremely hard if it's an arcade game, because that's literally the formula to rip people off.
Yeah.
And this game had so much character and so many things. It could have been stretched out twice as long, and I think it would have been more enjoyable, because the enemies, you only needed a handful of those enemies per level, but every level had like 12, 16 different enemies. There were enemies that showed up once, one of them, and never saw them again.
It was like a bullet hell game.
Yeah, well, kind of, but it was a bullet hell of like.
But you don't have a way to fight back.
Right.
Of the bullet hell. It's
a visual bullet hell, because you're just like, you can't really focus at first. You're like, look at this, look at that, look at the background. What's going on here? I just kept saying, what is going on?
Yeah.
What is going on? I don't know what was next. But I wasn't overwhelmed in a sense of me playing like a bullet hell game where I'm like, oh my God, the whole entire screen is enemy missiles. This was like, all right, my brain's trying to process literally every single thing that's on this screen. And
what do now?
Yeah. I'm like looking at this thing, looking at that thing. I'm trying to dodge this, trying to dodge that. I'm laughing at this thing. And then all of a sudden I slip on a banana peel and I fall under to the next platform. And I'm like, well, that kind of makes me upset.
Yeah, because now you have to
I know, and I went back up, and then it doesn't even go away. You just slip on the same banana peel, and there's no banana pills anywhere else in the game.
It's just that one spot.
Part,
yeah,
which I kind of thought was cool, which leads me into my theory later about this game. But yeah, so that's. I mean, okay, well, if we're talking about gameplay, we have to talk about the weapons.
Yeah,
because the weapons, of course, are wacky. You know, tomato.
I mean, that's why I was saying we kind of have to just this is gonna be all over the place.
Yeah.
Because the game is all over the place.
Yeah.
You start out with tomatoes.
Mm-hmm.
And then
which is kind of arc, and I don't like that.
No, it's a classic kind of old school.
You know what I got from it? I got a
weapon.
little bit of Ghosts and Goblin vibes from their weapon system, because and like super Ghosts and Goblins, because or Super Ghouls and Ghosts, because you start with like this weapon that kind of sucks.
Also, a game that it infuriates me.
Oh, well, I love those games though.
I
suck at them. I've never beat them. But
I like them in aesthetic and in theory, but when I play
sound,
them, they
development,
they make me so mad.
They're so well made though. Anyways, so you start like you're saying the tomatoes, and then go ahead.
Well, going off of I want to go back to the ghouls and ghosts.
See, we're having a hard time even doing this episode because JJ Squawkins got under our skin.
It
not
doesn't
really under our skin, but we're just like,
well, it doesn't make any sense too, because going back to the ghouls and ghosts thing, you know what you're going to get when you get a power up. It's going to progress through a weapon system.
Yeah.
This does not do that.
Well,
there's a weird egg thing that runs around in most levels.
Yes.
Some of them, it's something completely different.
Right.
And it will drop a random power up. You will legitimately have the best weapon in the game, and all of a sudden they will drop the tomato again.
Yeah. Which I think is on brand for JJ Squawkers. However, I also didn't know what some of those did. So I'm like, okay, I grab a moon. What does the moon do? And it's like, it would say, I can't, it escapes me right now.
The moon made you shoot faster.
But I didn't feel like I was, because what were the other weapons? You had green beans, but when you throw them, they're rainbow colored, and it throws like a spray gun.
That was my favorite.
But it didn't go very far.
Yeah.
I didn't like the range of it. It's like having the spray gun in Contra, but it doesn't go. It only goes like
it's like a shotgun,
a quarter, shotgun length. My favorite actually was the feet. It's like the two shoes that are on a slinky.
Yeah.
Because I found it because it's like a powerful weapon. It hits harder than the other ones, but also it goes across the screen. You can arc it up. You can actually repeat it really fast. The cooldown, I guess, isn't as bad as
the problem I found with that one was it flying enemies.
Yeah. But
like anything that stood still for a while.
And then you get these you get these secondary upgraded versions of all these weapons. And what was the one that threw like the metal man like cog? That was like OP as hell. It was like golden cogs.
Oh yeah, the cogs were dope.
Yeah, I can't remember what that was upgraded from. I'm thinking
it's a sun.
Yeah, but I mean the original weapon that it upgrades from.
I just remember a sun.
Yeah, the sun was what you want. The moon didn't help.
Yeah,
I'm like, you can make me shoot faster. I'm still gonna die.
I know the screw was really good if the thing was right in front of you.
That reminded me of the lance from Ghosts and Goblins.
Yeah,
it
was really good.
Yeah.
It did a lot of damage, but you have to be very accurate with it.
To be fair though, I'm not gonna say this game is anywhere near as hard as Ghosts and Goblins. Not at all, because Ghosts and Goblins is a gauntlet. And this game is like 1/8 the length. But to be fair, unlimited quarter button.
That's
unlimited quarter
that's
button.
what I was gonna.
You don't have that in Ghosts and Goblins.
Fight you on, because when I could just reload my lives infinitely.
But it's very similar to that game. I'm realizing now, like they're close related. I would say almost this was. I don't know, man. There's so many things I think this game's inspired by.
I feel like Ghosts and Goblins has tighter controls and
longer levels.
Well, yeah, but it actually the life system and everything makes more sense.
But they're both the same. You get 2 hits. So in JJ Squawking, you have a life bar, but it doesn't matter because you get hit once and you hit the second time you die.
Yeah.
Same thing in Ghosts and Goblins. You get hit, you lose your armor. It's just more visual, and then you're a skeleton and you get hit the second time and you die.
But I mean, I don't know. I feel like it was more fair and this game is when the hit detection and like
it didn't feel complete. I think that's what I'm getting at as far as like the gameplay and my first impressions of it is I have this over like casting feeling of this game wasn't done, and I feel like this rushing, but I also feel this weird bit of like passion in it where it's really impressive visually and it's funny.
It honestly kind of has pachinko vibes.
Yeah, I can see it being a pachinko machine for sure.
It is.
Like JJ Squawkers could be like a mascot for like a lottery company, and
it's definitely designed to make money.
Yeah. Oh, you mean in that aspect? Oh
no, but I mean also
both. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Maybe it is though. I don't know. It's kind of this is so hard to research this game other than just playing it. I'm just glad we were able to play it because when it was chosen by the gods of random. This is the most random. Not only was this the most random game I've ever played, but it's definitely got to be so far the most random choice.
Yeah,
in Random Town, because I can't even barely find any information on
it.
Right,
and it seems like it didn't ever exist.
Right. It seems like I'm playing somebody's dream, and their dream isn't that important, and it's just a bunch of craziness.
Yeah.
But all right, well, let's talk about graphics and audio. Even though we kind of already did. Quite a bit, but it's kind of the graphics are a part of the gameplay and the first impressions. They're kind of like they take center stage for this game. This game has great graphics. It's colorful. I like the music. The music vibes well. It's weird. The boss music is the same.
Yeah, but
it's hype.
But it's hype. Yeah,
it's hype. It's like like get you going, kind of like Mega Man.
Yeah,
game kind of gives me Mega Man vibes, except you don't keep your
right
attacks. It's extremely vivid, colorful sprites. The backgrounds animations are solid. We already went over the enemies. Like it's varied.
I do think the boss design was good.
I do too, but also it's just like everything else in the game. It's just random, right? Like you got. I like the bosses.
They didn't. Well, one of them distinctly fit the level. It was
the B guy the first level, or
no? I mean that.
It was the second level with the blob, the rainbow blob guy.
No, I was thinking specifically the robot guy in the robot
level. That was the hardest boss. That boss gave me the most trouble.
Really?
Yeah, because I couldn't figure out his attack pattern, and then like I didn't know he kept throwing those blocks, and when he throws blocks, it would just throw off my whole rhythm because I'm like.
What kind of weapon did you have? Do you remember?
Oh, dude, I just rocked the slinky shoes
all
day.
I had the shotgun blast.
Well, that's probably where I went wrong. Yeah,
the beans was where it was at on that one.
Dude,
yeah,
you rolled that beautiful bean footage, right?
Yeah. But I don't think I would have beaten it if I didn't have the beans.
There's like other weapons too. I think there might be like a fifth weapon that
I would never know because it just reset me back to.
Yeah.
There were so many times where I was
There's
just
some
like
glitches. There's
just rocking hard with something awesome, and all of a sudden it's just like
it freezes and resets.
Oh, no.
Well, I don't know if I can fault the game for that.
Oh, it's the emulator's fault at that point.
Yeah. So
I mean,
maybe I don't know
if you have ever found a cabinet of this game.
Yeah.
I would love to know where and how much money you've spent on it.
So here's the only thing I can find, and it's from a Facebook group called the Galloping Ghost Arcade, which I don't know. I hope it's an arcade, but it says, for those who missed Monday Mystery Game, it's JJ Squawkers, released from Athena in 1993. Super rare game, was one we were anxious to get in front of. So it does exist. And there is a PCB. You're familiar with that is? It's like that's the motherboard.
Yeah,
for arcade
they
games.
actually got the card for it.
It does exist. They said at least a PCB exists. So it has been made and is an actual arcade, but apparently it's insanely rare.
Okay.
So it's probably worth, I don't even know.
I
don't even want to look up
how
much it's worth, but yeah. But music's good. Boss music's good. Crazy assortment characters.
Even though it only has the one boss track, it's at least.
That's very arcade though. Like,
yeah,
that's par for the course. Like Sunset Riders, I think kind of did that. I can think of a lot of games that use just like a boss theme. I think even like Turtles in Time or the arcade version of that.
I mean,
like
to be fair, every arcade that I've been in has been so loud that
old man over here.
Barely.
I'm older than you. I think I'm like 5. What am I, like 4?
Yeah, but I mean, I mostly go to barcades now.
Yeah, and you are a fan of metal shows, so
I actually have superhuman hearing.
I bet you do.
If you want to see my military records, I'll show you how.
I believe you. No, I'm just giving you a hard time, but it's true though. Like arcades are by nature, they're always like. I don't think I've ever been in a quiet arcade. That would be kind of scary. It's like, what is going on here?
It's one of the things that I don't pay attention to typically when I'm playing an arcade cabinet game.
Yeah, because you can't. You're not going to get. It's not like you can plug in headphones.
Yeah,
and hear it stereo. You're like,
although I've seen some pinball machines that
are
that.
Loud. Yeah. Oh,
no,
they actually have the.
Yeah, they have a headphone.
No kidding. Okay, that's cool. I think I would dig that. Except for like ripping your headphone cord out, which is annoying, but that's kind of cool.
It's also that would immediately pin you as the pinball wizard. Like, who's the weird guy who's got his headphones plugged into
at the arcade?
Yeah.
God forbid you're the weirdest guy in an arcade. Like, we come here to hang out and pick up women. Who's this weirdo playing pinball with headphones on?
Oddly, some people do.
I don't know. I've seen people, they're in the zone. I think it's kind of cool, like that subculture now that's come back of like competitive pinball players, especially in this town. This town's a big pinball town, so but it's cool to see that come back. I wish it was air hockey as well, but whatever.
That's just because you're really good at it.
I love air hockey. All right, so here's the part I wanted to get to a little bit about the things I feel this game either inspired or was inspired by.
Okay.
Cuphead. We talked about Cuphead.
Yeah.
I got a little bit of Earthbound vibes.
Yeah.
Metal Slug. We talked about a game called Fantasy Zone. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but a lot of Fantasy Zone.
I know.
And speaking of Fantasy Zone, I don't know if you're also familiar with this developer for Sega. I don't know if they made games for SNES. I might have to be corrected here, but every game they made had their feel and was really good, and they were called Treasure. So they made like
wait, the developer was
developer's called Treasure.
Treasure, okay.
They made a lot. They made like Gunstar Heroes. Because I was starting to list off other things I thought were like it, and I realized it was all the same developer.
Was Gunstar Heroes? Was that like a cowboy shoot 'em up?
No, you're thinking of Sunset Riders.
Oh, okay.
Gunstar Heroes was like it was a shooter, but it was like you're pretty much two little kids, and it's crazy and it's super good. It's on Sega. It reminded me of like that company had its hand in this, or like was inspired by, or vice versa. But it's just a lot of that. So with that said, My theory about this game was that it was ultimately like a prototype of what this developer could produce, not just graphically, but mechanically. I feel like they made this to show off what their studio can do, but it wasn't very cohesive. I feel like that's the game lacked the most was the cohesiveness. So
I actually I could see that
Yeah.
because it lacked polish.
right, but it was impressive.
But yeah, I mean, other than like the visuals and all the wackadoo things going on,
Yeah,
but just the mechanics were not dialed in.
I also wonder if they made this to try to get like publishers to like give their studio more money to make bigger projects and be like, look at all these characters we can make, and look at this music and this the speed this is going, and these different graphical things that can happen. And everybody was like, nah. So they're like, all right, just make an arcade game and let's just move on. I feel like that's what happened with JJ Squawkers, because that's the only thing I can come up with why it exists.
I mean, with its visuals and the difficulty
Yeah.
and it being a Japanese game, I can very much see this being something that was in like a pachinko pot.
You're really riding that pachinko theory
No,
hard.
I
Huh?
mean, that is legal gambling.
Makes
for
sense
them.
though. No, it makes sense.
And this would be I'm not here to gamble. They're doing it for the clout.
But it's still helping. It's helping hit those parts of your brain where you're just putting money in. You just want to get further.
You're constantly
Yeah.
feeding quarters. In this.
I wish I would have like kept a count of how many times I put in a fake quarter when I was playing the game, just to see where it would have been, because it was like. But also, spoiler alert, everybody! I got to the last boss, figured out how to beat him, and the game froze and restarted back to the beginning screen, and I was like, I'm done. Not going through this again. I experienced all the game I could, enough to give a review. So, all right, Mr. Miller, what is your verdict on JJ Squawkers?
It's interesting.
Yeah.
It is. Oh, how do I put this? It's like a family heirloom, but it's covered in mold.
Gross.
I don't know. That's
It's just Grandpa's pickled toe in a glass.
It's
weird.
It's weird. It's if it wasn't art, like if I encountered it in the wild, I would not play it.
Oh, neither would I,
because it is a coin suck.
Well, it's weird though. I maybe would have thrown a quarter or two into it, because
I would have played it once and then said never again.
Because that demo screen is kind of flashy and bright, and I'm like, what is this? And it plays a little bit of the level, and you're like, this looks insane.
It is. It is a cruel temptress.
But however, it is 2-player game, and there's no way for us to play it 2 players.
I have no idea how it would work with 2 players.
I would assume it would be easier because you have twice as much, projectiles from your end.
But there's also way more visual clutter at that point.
Yeah,
and
I don't know if it doubles the enemies
and trying to keep track of where you're going because the platforming is so weird.
Yeah, and that's a big part. It's got that trial and error platforming that I'm not the biggest fan of.
It's a coin dump, and
it's clear
to me that is a big dump. It's finding a big heroin dookie in the toilet.
Oh gosh, oof. Okay, so that's so you rank it
it is a fun experiment.
Yeah,
and it is visually enticing.
Yes,
but
it's frustrating.
The overall experience, it's bad.
Okay, I actually agree with you on this. I wrote JJ Squawkers is a strictly by the book arcade platformer with like super trippy visuals and a large cast of weird enemies, but it's quarter munching. It's super short, and like I said earlier, it's a DMT trip of a game. I feel like JJ Squawkers, the game didn't even know what it was or what it was doing. I think it was unaware, but I can't say it wasn't fun. It was kind of fun. However, it doesn't get my approval. I'm not going to say it's like a garbage game. I'm just going to say it's like I throw it in the same realm as Blood Rain, but not, and I know they're different games, but they both get my thumbs down because first off, this game is really hard to play if you don't understand how to use MAME or an emulator. You're not finding it anywhere. It does not exist anywhere else. There's no ports of it. There's apparently the arcade cabinet is one of the rarest things ever. So the only way to experience it is you have to kind of go out of your way or have the knowledge of MAME and then find the ROM and set up your controls. And then you're going to be play this game for 10 minutes and it's probably going to crash and you're going to feel like you wasted your time.
Yeah. And even if you did find it in the wild, like we've said before,
yeah,
you're going to spend your life savings on this game.
Just grab it, have your friend bring his truck and just steal it because that's the best way.
Right. Unless somebody turns the infinite life setting on or
offer the person that owns that arcade, be like, hey man, I'll give you $1,000 for that arcade cabinet right now.
Yeah.
And they'd be like, who do you think I am? That thing's worth like $70,000 probably because there's two in existence. So see, look, I'm thinking like JJ Squawkers right now.
I would say if you're an arcade head, it's probably a hidden gem.
Yeah,
but
it's sought after by arcade collectors.
Yeah,
that's clear.
But as a game itself,
play Super Bowling. Super Bowling's gonna.
It's not.
No,
it's a fun thought experiment.
It's weird. But now it goes in history of our show. But get this. Oh, we're not choosing the game next week because the game has been chosen for us by our patron, Daniel Kenshiro. All right. So the game that was, you know what? Just run the music first. Okay, so the game is from 1997.
Okay.
On the PlayStation 1.
Okay.
It was developed by Whoopee Camp. Published by Sony Computer Entertainment.
Well, I mean, it's a PlayStation game.
Yes. I'm trying to get you excited. The creator of the game also worked on Ghosts and Goblins.
Oh,
and the game is a platform adventure where you're a pink-haired caveman hunting pigs, and the name of the game is Tomba.
Tomba? Okay.
Just give you a heads up, it is very critically acclaimed.
Tomba.
Yeah. It has, just off the reception section, I don't want to look too much into it, but off the reception section of the Wikipedia, it's got really high ratings.
Okay. So
that was the game chosen, Tomba. For the next week, we're going to be playing Tomba on the PlayStation 1.
TOMBA
exclamation point.
Tomba computer game. Oh, I've totally seen this.
Yeah, before. I've seen it before, but I've never played it. So this will be fun. This was chosen. Yeah. Thank you, Dan Kenshiro. And if you want to also throw your games into our pool, you can always join our Patreon. And the $5 reward will allow you to throw one game a month into that pool, which at the end of the month we will pull from, and that will be an episode, no matter what. Whether we've played it or not, it just has to be at least 20 years old or older. So, which, by the way, neither of us have played Final Fantasy VII. So, and I've never played Chrono Trigger. Hint, hint. Anybody out there? If you want to hear one of those episodes. So, or Him Suikoden.
Yeah, I've never played. There's good games out there, please.
Or Vandal Hearts. Suikoden's my favorite. You know what's crazy about Vandal Hearts and Suikoden? They were made by the same company, same team, and came out like a month apart. And then they're like one of my favorite. Like
Vandal
Hearts is like the Final Fantasy Tactics, and Suikoden is the Final Fantasy.
But they like literally the same team.
Same team and everything. Yeah.
How did they manage that?
Just like Square Enix managed making Final Fantasy and Final Fantasy Tactics.
Oh, they must have been a big studio then.
Yeah, they were. I mean, off the top of my head, I don't know who they are, but it's Konami. Konami.
Yeah, okay.
Konami made them.
So like, it was probably
we're talking Castlevania, man.
Yeah.
We're talking. They were big back then. I mean,
they're still big.
They just made not really like sold all their IPs and now make like gambling machines. But
yeah, I guess you're right.
It's very sad. That's a terrible. The CEO of Konami, you should be ashamed of yourself.
Shame.
How dare you? Anyways, that's the episode this week. We'll see you next week for Tomba. I don't know if I should pronounce it with the exclamation point. Tomba! But it just sounds, I don't know. We will be releasing a Patreon exclusive game review for Packy and Marlin. So if you want to hear that review of the Diabetic Elephant game.
Oh, man.
On the SNES. $2 on our Patreon will get you there. So thank you for coming. Thank you for going. And we'll see you next time.
Usa.
What? Okay. All right. Go with God. What else can I do?
With my dad, I just want to say everybody, guys, bye.